Good morning, everyone. Kris here with Inspired Energy, and joining me again, my friend Kumara Llanera. Good morning, Kumara.
Good morning.
Yes. So maybe
Good
I'll
day
just,
to you.
yeah, I'll just start off and tell you a little bit about Kumara for those of you that haven't been with us before. So, Kumara, or we call him Kuma for short, is a certified teacher from the School of the Heart, and he specializes in heart imagery. And he creates new pathways and systems with clients to facilitate healing. Kumara has created a system of quantum divining biofeedback, which include the use of dowsing rods and pendulums which connect and bridge the subtle realms and etheric bodies. His sessions can also help relieve pain in the body by digging deeper within oneself. And just to continue on, he's on a constant journey for learning and always seeking out new technology. So he's currently also undertaking shamanic training. And he's discovered a few new technologies, which we're going to talk about today. One is the Ajna light, and another one is light wave therapy. And then, of course, if we have time, we'll touch again on the heart imagery. So, good morning, welcome, and I'm so excited for this show.
Greetings, grand day rise.
Yes. So, maybe
Yeah,
just start off and tell us how you got to this point of finding all of these new technologies and then get into what the Ajna light is.
I would say that's a good question. Thank you. And
Mhm.
I would say the basis of being where I am at today is being a co-creator in every moment. And at the foundation and root level is to be always not necessarily be subservient to the whole, but be in service, but first the self, infused with humility. So the
Mhm.
best way to learn is actually to become a sharer of knowledge and information, as well as the inner intelligence within myself. May it reflect and give rise or inspire others to open up their own intelligence and their
Oh,
own inner light, right? Find
beautiful.
your, not find, but rediscover your own inner authority.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, with that, maybe you can tell us a little about this new technology, this Ajna light, which I had the opportunity to experience. Thank you very much. I found it quite profound, and I just love it. The energy that I get and how good I feel after I leave, because I'm one of those people who tends to be very busy in the head. So I found it quite healing.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yes. So basically, it would be a rediscovery for myself because I've used Ajnolite very, very regularly when I was living in Vancouver. The household that I'm kind of still a part of, because every time I go to Vancouver, there are 3 units in the house,
Hmm.
and they're not cheap units. They have been created by a beautiful man by the name of Guy Harriman, and he developed it. He used to work directly with Steve Jobs. And when Steve, I believe, I, my timelines might not be accurate, so I'm not going to quote on that. But at some point, he went deep into his yogic practice and moved to Thailand, where he continued
Hmm.
to develop this technology of these high intensity white light pulses, or LEDs, high intensity, so it's 5,000 lumens. So you don't really feel it's like equivalent to 500 watts of a halogen lamp. And as you know, even a low wattage halogen lamp is quite hot.
Hmm.
This is very cool because it's an LED. So using the technology we have today in order to help reflect back our true blueprint, which is contained in our DNA. And with our DNA, it responds to the not just pulsations of the light that actually activate and decalcify the pineal gland. So when people are getting these light strobes that are exposed to their ocular nerve through closed eyes, because it's about a foot away or 12 inches away from the face, it
Hmm.
also exposes the third eye to these light pulses, and they're specifically curated pulsations and frequencies, and the frequency spread between each on and off at
Hmm.
high levels, which can translate to sound, but using light
Oh.
because light and the white light carries all color. It's like when you shine a beam of light through a prism, it spreads out into the rainbow, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you have the full rainbow, for a lot of people whose ca- uh, pineal glands are decalcified, they usually add a higher intensity of light because I could adjust it.
Mm-hmm.
They are not able to see or perceive color much because that color is recognized internally. It's not coming from the unit itself.
Oh,
That's the
wonderful.
beautiful thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when people say, "Oh wow, I'm seeing colors," how many colors are in that box? And I'm like, it's just white light. The color is being pretty much because we are like prisms too. So
Um,
a perfectly honed crystal that has, let's say, the Vogel crystal that has 144 sides, it
right.
reflects light like a diamond, and you can actually
Mm-hmm.
see the refractions, and we also refract light.
Mm-hmm.
So, and what actually helps us reflect a fuller spectrum is when we're actually internally coherent. So the balance between the head brain and the heart brain, which is made of the same material molecularly, you have toroidal fields that actually start to uh, become whole and coherent. Let's say the toroid field of the heart becomes coherent when we have the mind or the intellect part that control and help control direct energy from
Mm-hmm.
the heart flow. Then they can start to integrate and synchronize together. When they integrate together, then you have that what we can perceive as magnification or expansion. So we can feel the heart expand because it's in the parasympathetic nervous system. When that is
Mm-hmm.
actually activated, we can actually start accessing the subtle realms, and we can
Right.
start to
Yeah.
perceive. Let's say, oh, I see something in my periphery. What is that? But because
Mm-hmm.
of matrix programming, it's like, oh, you're just imagining it. Oh,
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
you're not all there. So all these negative comments make us contract emotionally. It's
Mm-hmm.
like I'm gonna hide it. There's
Yeah.
something wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
I've been through that stuff, and it's like
Yeah, me
it
too.
it does nothing but
Mm-hmm.
make you feel puny, and it makes
Mm-hmm.
and it has everything to do with how people react to you. So when you're feeling puny, people are going to treat you that way, as well as you're going to attract others who will make
Yeah.
you feel that way because
Yeah.
that's your construct.
Your self-confidence really takes a beating when that kind of stuff happens and people start saying, oh, well, you're crazy, you're imagining things,
Hmm.
why would you see that? I don't see that. If I don't see it, it's not there, right? And
Hmm.
that's what we're taught, right? If
Hmm.
everybody can't see it, then it doesn't exist, right?
Yeah, it's like, I use the example of, well, when the sun goes down below the horizon every night, it
Hmm.
doesn't mean the sun is dead.
Yeah,
It's
that
just
it
on
just
the other side. It still
exactly.
exists.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah.
some people from the dark side of the earth during nighttime, they
Hmm.
can still perceive the sun. It's all
Hmm.
energetics, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There's also ions. That's another talk.
Yeah.
Ionic charge and ionic fields.
So I'm really curious when we talk about it actually decalcifying the pineal gland. What is that process? Like, what does that look like? Like, how is it doing that?
It's doing that because that high intensity frequency, it's
Hmm.
not going through material anymore. In a sense, it is. It's
Hmm.
going through the information of how of our perception of, because when someone has their eyes closed, and then I give them a little bit of what to expect.
Hmm.
But first, I ask them what their state is. I ask them, how are you at in your life? And I'll get a very varied response where, oh, there's a death in my family. I've been having a lot of deaths in my family. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to deal with it. Or, and I would even ask further. I'm like, well, how's your life before that? Well, I'm prone to depression and yada yada yada.
Hmm.
That will help me as a practitioner tune that Ajna light box so that it could help gently
Hmm.
give rise and have them, when they say, oh, wake up to the
Hmm.
realm, or just
Yep.
people haven't woken up yet, that kind of expression,
Hmm.
even when slumber mode, that's actually when we're most awake,
Mm-hmm.
spiritually and super consciously.
Mm-hmm.
Consciously, where our bodies are resting, but
Mm-hmm.
our souls and spirits never rest.
Yeah.
So how
That's
that
why we wake
actually
up tired.
happens, when that actually happens,
Yeah.
whether you're awake or sleeping, when
Mm-hmm.
you're in a session with me, these light pulsations will start to, that spooky action at a distance. When this is
Mm-hmm.
talking this way, they're going to start talking this way. There might
Mm-hmm.
be there might be a physical barrier, there might
Mm-hmm.
be a sheath of calcium, but because this is now able to, this is the outer world. This is
Mm-hmm.
There's the sheath.
Mm-hmm.
This is stay still. Well,
Mm-hmm.
now that the light is starting to communicate, this starts doing this. The pineal gland, when it starts
Uh,
to pump, it does
mm-hmm.
the pump. It does an action thing. It starts to move. Then the sheath starts to decrystallize, starts to break off. So there is a process, and then so if we break it off too soon, it could put someone into shock. That's why it's good to I make sure I do it gently in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
If someone is prone to, oh, I just give it to me, right? I like the
Yeah.
punch. It's like, okay, well, it depends on also my relationship with the receiver or the patient.
Mm-hmm.
If
Yeah.
I don't know them, I'm still not going to do it.
Yeah.
I will actually connect to their higher self.
Well, can that also cause us like psychosis or psychotic break in someone who's not ready if
It can,
they're all of
it
a sudden
can.
opened up to that unseen realm? Then,
Yeah,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So when they have a little bit of familiarity, and I can actually detect it, especially from the shaman training, I've been
Mm-hmm.
training myself and training myself through the guidance of the courses that I'm taking to become more subtly and more subtly and more subtly aware.
Mm-hmm.
And there are levels like subtle, 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 and it doesn't end.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well,
when I'm
because
starting,
it's quantum, right? You keep
yeah,
the quantum level. Just like in your heart imagery, you keep going in, and it keeps going forever,
and
right?
there's always another layer because
Yeah.
sometimes when we think we've reached the center, there's
Mm-hmm.
more.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, and the further in we go into the heart, the further out we're able to perceive. It's really
Mm-hmm.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's a mirror.
Yeah.
That's why the duality state and being locked in war, locked in duality, locked in right and wrong and black and white, that ends up becoming more of a source of demise
Mm-hmm.
on the collective level as well as on the individual level.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's interesting when we talk about being able to see the unseen realm and the shamanic um, perspective. So, like
Hmm.
when we get to the same point as, say, a shaman, you can actually see with your eyes closed because everything, right? And I
Yes,
don't think that a lot of people say that, that's real. But I mean, you have to train and you have to, clean your vessel and make sure your vessel is clean. Like there's a whole process
that's
to
right.
it.
There is. And then
Yeah.
it's interesting because I'm glad you mentioned that because when when you said clean up, we do really have to clean up,
Mm-hmm.
and just and and we have to define to each person, like each person that comes to me or individual comes to me for a session, I will actually ask them what is real to you.
Mm-hmm.
The common state is, oh, whatever's in front of me. Well, what is that? Things that you can perceive and touch, but we're all made of light,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's why I love technology, light technology like that, and the patches that reflect back light back into the
Mm-hmm.
body, that emits out of the body first.
Mm-hmm.
And heat signatures actually carry a lot of information. And only
Mm-hmm.
lately can modern science, through the refinement of detection systems, can start to, these machines are starting to perceive the things that machines couldn't perceive before.
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly.
nothing is fixed, even a machine. A machine that used to, or a computer that used to take up 2 or 3 rooms in a small house,
Mm-hmm.
now we have it in our hand.
Yeah, exactly.
They're
Yeah.
getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
And then I also use that as an example of, can you see the information that
Yeah.
travels between this phone
And
and
the other,
on the other side? Can you
mhm,
see it in the air? No, you can't.
yeah.
But there's a sender and a receiver,
Hmm.
right? And that's why when there's a receiver of someone who's in pain, a listener is enough to actually start healing them.
Mm-hmm.
If they are heard, that makes a huge difference. And when they feel that you're honestly listening to them,
Mm-hmm.
they actually start to heal right then and there.
Well, people are meant. We're looking to be witnessed. Like
Hmm.
we want somebody to see who we are for what we are, right?
Yeah.
And that's like one of the things here at Clarity that when I opened it, that was
Hmm.
so amazing is that people would come and they go, "Oh, finally somebody I can talk to about these things without
Hmm.
feeling crazy. Like I can be
Yeah.
myself. I can
Yeah.
share those experiences and stuff." So I
Yeah.
think that's an incredible job that you're doing when you're connecting with people.
Yeah. And
Um,
thank you for the space for creating it, because it's a space where people can come and say, "Hey, I'm in the muck right now," and we're
mhm,
not the type that goes, "Well, if you're in the muck, get out." No,
mhm,
we're going to listen to you, and we're
yeah,
going to do our best to help you empower yourself.
yeah,
And
exactly.
we have the community. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, can you tell me like some of the, sorry, the benefits or the effects of the Ajna light? Because not just decalcifying the pineal gland, but I know when I used it, I feel like extremely energized and I
Yes.
feel like calm, like my mind
Hmm.
feels calm.
Hmm.
So,
It's
can you?
interesting because your mind is really busy and you're able to
Mhm,
multitask.
mhm.
You're able to take in more high intensity light, which
Uh,
makes a lot of sense. And
right.
you would think that it would actually overload you, but no, it's almost counterintuitive. Someone
Mhm,
who's extremely sensitive, someone another practitioner might say, "I'm going to turn it up then." But
mhm,
we had someone in the healing room with a
mhm,
light just a few days ago, knowing
mhm,
that she was very sensitive. I turned it right down, and it was still too much for her, so I turned it
mhm.
right down to 10%.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
So
You
we
have to
look
be
at,
careful
I
with
look at the, yeah, we have to be careful in terms of what we think might make sense. We have to be very subtly aware that that might not be for them at the time,
it. Hmm.
right?
Right,
And
exactly.
that having that intuitive sensitivity and connection, not only to the
Mhm,
technology, but using the technology to reach and help raise the frequency of the receiver
mhm.
when it is felt and perceived that they're ready for it.
Yeah.
It just comes, like information comes. It's like, okay, well, I can even customize a particular frequency for uh, a client, but
Hmm.
that takes a lot of time. I have to get to know them before I
Hmm.
start, customizing the beta, the gamma, the delta, as well as there's even like a DMT release type of thing. There's also
Yeah.
lambda. So
Hmm.
I don't really take people in the lambda state. People have to be in a more collective zone. Like, let's say we have, for example, an audience or a night that we just do Ajna life. We could do like
Hmm.
different examples of people who are already on the path to their on the quest for their own, finding their own best version of themselves. But
Hmm.
when the collective in the room is sharing that energy, we can bump it up a little bit more. But when there's
Hmm.
just individuals coming, one client here, 2 days later another client,
Hmm.
that's still quite not enough to bump up really, really super high frequencies at this
Yeah.
point. Yeah.
So, like a group could do this sort of thing, but you
Yes.
would want to vet where they're at before you did it as a group,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
yeah.
I would bet them, because sometimes when you have, let's say, a room, just like last night,
Hmm.
when we had heart imagery, I had to
Hmm.
be very, very aware and sensitive just in case someone, it's their first time. I can't
Hmm.
bump it up way too far, but at the same time, the ones who are familiar with heart imagery, not
Hmm.
be bored and not be so fixed. And you probably notice this, it's always different.
Hmm.
There's always an evolution to it, because it evolves with the current state of evolution.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
it's not a fixed technology. It's very high frequency,
Hmm.
and that's
So
the
maybe
kind of technologies I'm into.
yeah, maybe tell us a little bit about heart imagery since you segue into that.
Okay,
Yeah,
heart
because that's something else
imagery.
that you do. Yeah.
Yes, heart imagery I've been doing for a good, I've been certified 2 years ago. I've been
Hmm.
practicing for a good 5 years, almost 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I've done other meditations, but this one is an ancient 40,000-year-old technique that was
Mm-hmm.
contained and there was custodianship over it through, I would call them ascended teachers of our time, such
Mm-hmm.
as Drunvalo Melchizedek, the
Mm-hmm.
prolific author of the Ancient Secrets of the Flower of Life,
Mm-hmm.
volumes 1 and 2. So he's very known for that. He's got other books on the go too, and he has some surprise coming pretty soon, and
Cool.
I'm happy about that. Yes, and
Yeah.
the heart imagery basically is the inner journey into the pineal gland. So I have to
Mm-hmm.
educate and remind people who they really are, how their bodies are built, so that they can understand why their bodies are built the way they are. It's all
Mm-hmm.
sacred geometrics and sacred numerology. It's
Mm-hmm.
part of the flower of life. When we go into the pineal gland, then we can make that downward journey into the physical heart,
Mm-hmm.
our heart center.
Right.
And that's where we're able to create our own inner healing, our
Mm-hmm.
own manifestation, as long as it does not harm ourselves as well as another sentient being, or
Mm-hmm.
or that is doesn't harm the nature spirits
Right.
or nature,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So you start really respecting other people, people who are going through a hard time. Basically, you start to develop more compassion within yourself when you start developing your own way of accessing your heart, physical heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought it was interesting because, not to take away from what we're talking about, but I'm just tying this to my earlier talk with Hartwell,
Hmm.
and human design. And we're talking about the variables. And so, how when you start diving in and it has all these layers, then you start understanding other people better. So, we talked about perspective today and
Hmm.
how each person's perspective is different. And then
Hmm.
all of a sudden, there's an epiphany, and I'm like, oh, so that's why I think you're so naive. That's
Hmm.
why, I think you don't understand life because you're
Yeah,
meant to see things from a different perspective,
that's
right?
true. And then
Mhm.
being able to have the skill to jump into another perspective is, I say, is the innate talent that we all have that has been put to
Mhm.
sleep.
Yeah.
So my questions when I in the shaman training, I am to practice with going into groups and even talking to someone who I normally would not feel in alignment with and
Hmm.
ask different questions. If they're spewing off, I'll actually start asking questions like, so how has it helped you feeling this way?
Hmm.
Or may I know your perspective of why you feel this way, right?
Hmm.
So that I see it, I try, not try, but actually take the initiative steps to go into their shoes to see it,
Hmm.
but not to
Yeah.
judge it,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So instead of saying, "Oh, bad you," "Oh, you're such a person that," "Oh man, you're evil,"
Hmm.
can't do that because
Hmm.
when we talk that way, we're doing that to ourselves first.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think that's the important part is that people have forgotten that we're all connected, that
Hmm.
you know, we're like a piece of a puzzle. So like if we think about, God or source being one big ball, we're each
Hmm.
a little piece of that jigsaw puzzle. And without each other, it doesn't function properly.
Hmm.
We need all the different energies and all the different people. And
Hmm.
that's where the understanding and the non-judgment comes in handy, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
So we have a little bit more time here, but maybe
Hmm.
you can talk a little bit about another technology that you're dealing with, and it's Lightwave, I believe is the name of it,
Yeah,
with stem cell
like
stimulation. Yeah.
yeah, LifeWave patches. They are uh, they are circular gauze pads that have been sprayed with a crystalline lattice work, and there's different types of crystals, as you know, right? And they all
Hmm.
have different properties. They all have
Hmm.
a different purpose. LifeWave is a 20-year-old company, and it first started with energy enhancers. So there's a lot of high-profile people and uh, sports figures who had used it in order to enhance their energy. And
Hmm.
through the last, I would even say 2018, so that would be now 6 years, the
Mhm.
development of the new X39, X49. These are patches that actually will help your body's own capability to 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 initialize its own inner healing.
Mhm.
So basically, I'll be careful with my words because I don't know where this is going to go. I want to be
Mhm.
able to reach the masses by saying it in a particular way. So we're made of light,
Mhm.
as a lot of our demographic watching this show uh,
Mhm.
understand and understand,
Yeah.
is we emit light in the form of infrared light.
Mhm.
So we perceive it as heat. And through this heat signature that comes off the surface of our skin has information. And they've found this through, modern science and, subtler detection systems. So David Schmidt, who the founder is, inventor and CEO of the company, he keeps developing really new things and new patches that actually address any kind of ailment.
Mhm.
So what the patch does, it reflects back a full spectrum of light that activates the pineal gland in order to, whether calcified or decalcified, start to do its pump and become
Mhm.
active. So when that is active, the rest of the body follows because we're designed perfectly already by creator,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. We're meant to
So
heal ourselves. Yeah.
exactly. So
Mhm.
it'll address the toxicity in the body. There's a reason why we should be drinking more water while we're on this type of a therapeutic journey,
Yeah.
so that it could flush out, right?
Yeah.
That's
And
why we
breath
have
work.
organs and breath work. Breath
Yeah.
work is very important.
Mhm.
Um, and that's what we have to come back to. That's why
Mhm.
conscious breathing is that's very gentle,
Mhm.
is a training of even through the shaman training is just notice your breath in whatever uh, emotional state that you're dealing with in the moment. Let's say
Mhm.
something shocking just hits you, like someone just passed away.
Mhm.
Just tune into how you're breathing.
Mhm.
A lot of people don't know how to breathe,
Mhm.
and they're pretty much gasping for air, but on a subtle way.
Mhm.
Is that the in breath and the out breath becomes so shallow
Yeah.
that
Well,
they're not getting enough oxygen, and they're going into the amygdala going into fight or flight mode constantly, and then that's when you start experiencing something that is diagnosed as PTSD,
mhm.
trauma.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, is there anything that you want to say to wrap up today? Like maybe talk to people about what kind of offers you have for them to come in and try the Ajna Light here at Clair-i-tea?
Yes, I would
Hmm.
say those are good starters. The Ajna light is something that you can perceive right away instead of in the mind. It would be very good to actually use the Ajna light in order to raise, let's say, your vibration or your frequency or your emotional state.
Hmm.
Because let's say you came in, someone may have come in, they're feeling down in the dumps. They go get an aura reading from you,
Hmm.
and then go get an Ajna light, and then go for another aura reading. When
Hmm.
they see these readings actually go up, it
Hmm.
actually they start feeling empowered because they did it.
Hmm.
We just
Exactly.
hold the tools, right?
Yeah.
So I would say come in and try all the things that we have to offer.
Hmm.
And the light is amazing. Heart imagery, I do it in groups once a month, as well as one-on-one. The one-on-ones are very in depth.
Hmm.
Um, the doctor who came in last week, he
Hmm.
totally loved it,
Hmm.
and because he's on a
Did.
spiritual journey now. And
Yeah.
how often do you hear that a normal medical doctor
Hmm.
goes for a spiritual journey
Yeah.
and is loving it,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. Only when they have near death experiences, usually.
Yes, or when they are in a higher state of awareness where they're feeling this is going that way, it doesn't feel right, I need to look at this way, even though the
Yeah.
rest are telling me to go this way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Exactly. So,
yeah,
anyways, I would just encourage everybody to come in and try it. Kumara is here on Saturdays right now. If it gets more popular by you guys coming in, we'll add different days to that or times to that. But I recommend you come in and try it. And thank you so much for joining us today, Kumara, and getting
Thank you
this
for
new
having me.
technology out there. You're welcome. Have a beautiful, blessed day.
Thank you.
You're welcome.